The mind is everything. What you think, you become. Episode 13. Keep the butterflies alive. Hello everyone, and thank you for being here. Today I'd like to talk a little more about optimism and expand on a few ideas that we talked about in the previous episode. I'd like to start with a little clarification, because the word optimism is one of those that have several definitions. There are two ways of seeing optimism. One is the belief that good will always triumph over evil and strongly rely on hope. I'm optimistic, I'm sure things will get better. And the second one is more about the perception you have of the present world. I'm optimistic, the glass is half full, and I enjoy what I have. It's good enough. There's still an idea of hope in this second definition, because you cannot enjoy the present if all you think about is the bad things that are coming tomorrow. But as we'll see in a moment, this hope is not as significant as it is in the first definition. When you look up synonyms of the word optimism, you find words like cheerful, positive, confident, expectant, and even utopian. You can of course be all of these, but you can also be satisfied with the present without being particularly happy about it. There's a difference between being hopeful and being content. If optimism for you is the belief that no matter what happens, you just have to wait for things to get better, it means that you count on external causes to save the day, I might say. But optimism for me is about the perception of the present. It's a mindset that will make you enjoy whatever is happening, to some extent, obviously. In a certain way, things are good because they simply are, and there is no need for a projection into the future to make them better. One definition of optimism says that good comes from the world, the other one says that it comes from within you. That's why I'm always talking about serenity, because if you're serene, you actually don't have to be happy to enjoy a given situation, and you don't even have to be joyful. Serenity is a state of the soul in some way. You can be sad, disappointed, or betrayed, and still be serene, and able to find some reassurance in the most simple things. To be serene is to be okay with your interpretation of reality, and at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that things might get worse, because you're positive and confident, and it's not about the world, not even about others, it's about yourself. You trust in your ability to overcome any difficulty, but you also trust yourself to fail, and to learn from your failures. Having high hopes is the best way to get high disappointments. And when you just expect things to get better, things can get out of hand very quickly. Because then, what happens if things don't actually get better? You can still continue to hope, but it feels like a very passive way of watching the road instead of being on it. At some point, you need to realize that you have the ability to see the present in a different way, and that there's no need for expectations, whether it's about the world or about your life. To rely on external causes is to put yourself in a dangerous position. It's like waiting to be saved in some way. And as we've seen in the previous episode, being pessimistic is actually coming from the same expectations. So maybe we should just say that there are two ways of saying the same thing. One is bad and the other one is good. And the way you see it depends entirely on your mindset. You might argue that to be okay with reality is to be realistic or neutral, and that it's not really optimism, but I don't believe in a third way, because this optimism I'm describing makes you feel good. It has something positive, and as human beings, we are very much dualistic. I don't believe in the truth, as some might call it, because there cannot be any truth about the nature of a given event. The judgment of it depends only on us. Nothing is good or bad in the cosmos, but we, human beings, we need to abstract and to discriminate in order to understand, but also to survive. When we think we see things as they are, without suffering from them, we actually cannot really say what they truly are. So I call that optimism. It's not being impartial or objective. It's you, with your senses, having an appreciation of your direct environment. If I ask you how are you doing this morning, you might just reply, I'm okay, because you're not particularly enthusiastic, but nothing is problematic either. You're just following your morning routine. In that regard, good is the absence of bad. In Marcus Aurelius' Meditations, you can read a lot about this idea. There are 2 quotes from this book that I just found. The first one is, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." And the second one is, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this and you will find strength." So how do we gain power over our mind? How to see the good things, how to be positive, and how to stay serene no matter what happens? Of course, there's no magic solution. As I've said in other episodes, I think contemplating nature and eliminating what we don't need is important. But even in those 2 basic advices, there is a trap. Nowadays, self-development is on every media, and I'm starting to see a vicious pattern in it, the same that can actually corrupt any kind of therapy. Let me explain. When you have an emotional problem, you become anxious about it. And when you're anxious, you might want to see someone or to seek help in books and talks like this one. Then what is given to you, directly or not, is exercises, assignments, the same kind of exercises you would get if you wanted to be fit, except it's for the mind instead of the body. But there comes another problem. If you go too much to the gym, you might hurt yourself. And if the assignment is too hard, you will become even more anxious. And what do you do then? You get more therapy, more exercises, and you get stuck in some kind of a loop. You can see how something that is supposed to be helpful can actually become harmful. In self-development today, you can see a lot of stoicism because people want to receive tough advice, something that hurts their ego, because like muscle exercises, if it doesn't hurt, it doesn't work. You can find a lot of videos about how to be virtuous and how to always get the best of you. But this is all way too demanding, and people are getting tough against themselves. They want to look good, solve all their emotional problems, and they basically want to be perfect, like some kind of a Roman hero who can fight, speak, and philosophize all in a perfect way. But of course it's not possible. When we demand too much of ourselves, it cannot be healthy. We are just chasing an image, an illusion. I spent some time with some Buddhists, and we would often meditate all together. Sometimes new people would join and they would ask how to meditate. And the explanation given was very simple. You don't have to do anything. There are no rules. Being in a certain position can help. Thinking in a certain way can help too. But don't try to impose a standard on yourself because there's none. The goal is to find yourself and to make your own rules, your own routine. You actually learn a lot by being bored, because then you start to look around with different eyes and a different sensibility. You probably already know that, but when you look at an object, your human brain first sees its utility. So a chair is not a chair, it's a thing you can sit on. A tree is wood for fire, a stick is a weapon, a rock is a hammer, etc., etc. And when you see an object that you don't know how to use, your first question is, what is this? But you don't want to know the name of the object. Your real question is, how is it useful? And what is interesting is that if you judge that this object is useless, then you might lose total interest in it. So a good assignment would be to get bored and to try to detach yourself from your pragmatic nature. In other words, try to find beauty. As I think, and that's a theory I submit to your judgment, I think the more we attach beauty to an object, the less it becomes useful. As an example, let's say that the more we sublimate a tree, the less we perceive it as something we can cut to light up the fire. It's not wood anymore, it becomes life. And you can obviously apply the same process for many other things. So when it comes to fighting anxiety, maybe what you need is to find beauty in places where you're not used to finding it. And we have now circled back to optimism and the fact that being optimistic might involve, at least partly, to see things against your brain, to see them for what they are not, which is something undefined that is not a tool. And I'm not saying that being optimistic is to refuse to see reality. I'm saying that reality being impossible to define with certainty, Let's at least try to see it as something that can make us serene instead of agitated or even angry. To expand on this, I would also like to point out that trying to find the reason behind everything is definitely not helpful when you try to reach peace of mind. You can obtain great results by explaining the source of a trauma when you want to heal from it, but I don't think we should see ourselves as a creature full of scars and wounds. You're struggling where everyone struggles, and you don't need to actively heal yourself all the time. Let the blood come out because it's how we get rid of poison. You don't need to explain everything that goes through your soul, and if you do that, you're going to get eaten by anxiety. As you have probably heard before, Tolstoy said that if we admit that human life can be ruled by reason, the possibility of life is destroyed. The important bit here is human life. Tolstoy doesn't say that reason is wrong. On the contrary, he thinks that reason leads to the discovery of truth, and that it also unites us, but reason should never be considered our essence. It's not by being reasonable that you will get a happier life. He takes love as an example, saying that love cannot be comprehended by reason, because it is in fact unreasonable. We could argue that some kind of love can be reasonable, but that passionate love definitely isn't. But then, think about how boring life would be without passionate love. So we are not driven by reason, that's a fact. We are contradictory and often attracted by the things that make us suffer. We are often driven by sexual impulses that lead us to make a lot of mistakes, but also give us a powerful desire to exist. And this powerful desire is what I call the butterflies in the title of this episode. So keep them alive, those butterflies. Keep nourishing them. It might be unreasonable, but if it's currently your only way to be optimistic and to enjoy your reality, then go for it and do what makes you serene.